The morning sun cast long shadows across the Riverside Community Park as hundreds of families gathered for the annual safety fair. Children's laughter mixed with the smell of popcorn and cotton candy, creating the perfect atmosphere for a Saturday in September 2023. But in one corner of the park, near the police department's demonstration area, the cheerful mood was about to shatter into a moment of pure terror. 3-year-old Emma Martinez had been clutching her mother's hand tightly, her big brown eyes watching everything with quiet fascination. Sofia Martinez, a single mother who worked double shifts as a nurse, had brought Emma to the fair, hoping the colorful booths and friendly faces might help draw her daughter out of her shell. Emma had been so quiet lately, so withdrawn. Sofia hoped today might be different. Officer Jake stood in the center of a roped-off area, his K-9 partner Rex sitting at attention beside him. Rex was a magnificent German Shepherd, 90 pounds of pure muscle, with intelligent dark eyes and a coat that gleamed in the sunlight. For the past 30 minutes, had been demonstrating Rex's abilities to an impressed crowd. The dog had tracked a hidden object, responded to complex commands in both English and German, and performed a controlled apprehension demonstration that had made several adults flinch. Rex is trained in narcotics detection, tracking, and suspect apprehension, explained to the crowd, his voice carrying authority earned through years of service. He's completed over 800 hours of specialized training and has been my partner for 5 years. These dogs are not pets, they're highly trained law enforcement officers. The crowd applauded politely, keeping a respectful distance from the powerful animal. Parents held their children's hands a little. Rex's reputation preceded him. He'd been involved in several high-profile arrests, and his picture had been in the local newspaper just last month after helping track down an escaped prisoner. Sofia felt Emma's hand slip from hers. It happened so fast. One moment, Emma was standing beside her mother. The next, the little girl was running, actually running toward the demonstration area. Her small legs pumped with determination, her pigtails bouncing behind her. Emma, Sofia's scream cut through the crowd's chatter like a knife. Heads turned. Parents gasped. Officers' eyes widened in horror as he saw the tiny figure ducking under the rope barrier and racing straight toward Rex. Everything seemed to shift into slow motion. Sofia lunged forward, her heart hammering against her ribs so hard she thought it might burst. Her nursing scrubs caught on someone's stroller, costing her precious seconds. "Stop! Emma, stop!" Her voice was raw with panic. Officer's training kicked in instantly. His hand tightened on Rex's leash, his other hand moving to the release mechanism. Rex's ears had pricked up sharply, his entire body tensing as he registered the small human charging toward him. The dog's training was sophisticated, but it was also instinctive. Sudden movements triggered alert responses. "Everyone stay back," commanded, his voice sharp and professional despite the adrenaline flooding his system. His mind raced through scenarios, each one worse than the last. Rex was trained, yes, but he was also an animal with protective instincts. A child running directly at him could be perceived as a threat. The crowd had frozen, creating a horrible tableau of suspended action. Parents grabbed their own children, pulling them backward. Cell phones appeared almost magically, dozens of them, held by people who were either hopping to capture something heartwarming or documenting what they feared might become a tragedy. A teenage boy near the front actually closed his eyes, unable to watch. Emma was now less than 10 feet away, then 5 feet. Her small sneakers kicked up dust as she ran. "Emma, no!" Sofia had finally broken free and was running too, but she was too far behind, too far to reach her daughter in time. Officer made a split-second decision. He dropped to one knee, positioning his body between Rex and the approaching child while keeping the leash firm. "Easy, boy," he said in German, the command word for calm. Rex's muscles were coiled tight, his dark eyes locked on Emma with laser focus. 3 feet away now. Sophia's mind flooded with worst-case scenarios. She'd seen dog bite victims in the emergency room. She knew what damage an animal like Rex could do, especially to a child so small. "Please, God," she whispered, still running, her arms outstretched. 2 feet. Then Emma stopped. Just stopped, as suddenly as she'd started running. She stood there, barely reaching Rex's shoulder height, looking up at the massive police dog with an expression that made officers' breath catch in his throat. There was no fear in her eyes, none at all. The entire fairground had gone silent. Even the carnival music from the nearby rides seemed to fade away. Hundreds of people held their breath, watching this impossible standoff between a trained police K-9 and a 3-year-old girl who should have been terrified. Rex's nose twitched, taking in Emma's scent. His ears remained forward, alert but not aggressive. Could feel the tension in the leash, but something was different. Rex wasn't pulling forward or backing away. He was waiting. Sophia finally reached them, her hands trembling violently as she prepared to snatch Emma away from danger. "I'm so sorry," she gasped to Officer, tears already forming in her eyes. "I'm so sorry, she never." But held up one hand, stopping Sophia mid-apology. "Wait," he said softly, his eyes never leaving the interaction between dog and child. "Just wait." Because something extraordinary was happening. Something that, in his 5 years partnering with Rex and 10 years in law enforcement, Officer had never witnessed. Emma's small hand was rising slowly, palm up, fingers slightly curled. The gesture was gentle, non-threatening, almost ritualistic in its careful execution. And Rex, fierce, powerful, professional Rex, was leaning forward slightly, his nose extending toward those tiny fingers. The crowd pressed closer, dozens of phones now recording this moment. Nobody spoke. Nobody even seemed to breathe. The whole world had narrowed to this one impossible interaction between a little girl who shouldn't be brave and a police dog who shouldn't be gentle. Emma's lips parted. An officer found himself leaning in, straining to hear what the child might say. What could she possibly say that would make any sense of this surreal moment? Whatever was about to happen next, knew instinctively that it would change something fundamental. He could feel it in the electric tension of the air, in the way Rex's tail had moved from its rigid position to something almost questioning, in the way this tiny child stood fearless before a dog that grown men respected and feared. The moment stretched, suspended between disaster and miracle, waiting for Emma to break the silence. Emma's small fingers hovered just inches from Rex's powerful jaw, and the world seemed to hold its breath. Officer Jake's heart pounded so hard he could hear it in his ears. Every instinct screamed at him to pull Rex back, to create distance between this fearless child and 90 pounds of trained police dog. But some inexplicable intuition born from 5 years of partnership, made him hesitate. "Sweetie, please," said, his voice deliberately soft and calm, though sweat was beginning to bead on his forehead. "Please step back slowly. Just take one step back for me, okay?" Emma didn't even glance at him. Her eyes remained locked on Rex's dark, intelligent gaze, as if she and the dog were communicating in a language nobody else could hear. Her hand continued its slow, steady movement toward Rex's face. Sophia stood frozen behind her daughter, every muscle in her body screaming to grab Emma and run. But Officer's raised hand kept her in place. She watched in absolute terror as her baby girl, her precious, silent, struggling little girl, reached toward the most dangerous animal at the entire fair. "Emma, honey, please listen to Officer," Sophia whispered, her voice cracking. Her hands were shaking so badly she had to clasp them together. "Please, baby, come back to Mommy." But Emma seemed to exist in her own bubble, completely oblivious to the panic swirling around her. Or perhaps, and this thought struck Sophia with sudden clarity, Emma simply didn't feel the fear that everyone else did. For months, Emma had been afraid of people, of voices, of the world. But animals had never scared her. Rex's nostrils flared as he analyzed this small human scent. Could read his partner's body language like a book, the slight tilt of the head, the way his ears had moved from alert forward to a more questioning position, the subtle relaxation in his shoulders. Rex was confused, which was almost more concerning than aggression. Confusion could lead to unpredictable behavior. The crowd had swelled. Word had spread through the fair that something was happening at the police demonstration area. More people pressed forward, trying to see what had caused such a commotion. A mother near the front had her hand over her mouth, tears already streaming down her face as she watched the scene unfold. A father held his own son tight against his chest, as if Emma's danger somehow threatened all children present. "Should someone call animal control?" an elderly woman whispered loudly. "That dog's going to snap," a teenage boy muttered to his friend, his phone held high to capture every second. Heard these whispers, felt the crowd's fear and fascination pressing in around him. He wanted to shout at them to back away, to give Rex space, to stop creating additional stress. But he didn't dare raise his voice. Not now. Not with Emma's hand less than 6 inches from Rex's teeth. "I'm so sorry," Sophia said again, this time to the gathered crowd, to Officer, to God, to anyone who might be listening. "She's never done anything like this before. She doesn't usually approach anyone." That last word came out as barely a whisper. Sophia's eyes were locked on her daughter's back, on those small shoulders that carried so much invisible weight. Emma had spent the last 8 months avoiding interaction, shrinking from social situations, hiding behind Sophia's legs whenever strangers appeared. And now, here she was, confronting a police dog like it was the most natural thing in the world. Emma's fingers were now just 3 inches from Rex's nose. The little girl's movements were slow and deliberate, almost ceremonial. It was the kind of careful approach that professional dog trainers taught in advanced classes, controlled, confident, giving the animal time to assess and accept. Where had a 3-year-old learned this? Officer's mind raced back through his training. He'd seen hundreds of police K-9 demonstrations, had witnessed countless interactions between working dogs and civilians. The protocol was clear: maintain control, keep distance, never allow unsupervised contact. He was violating every rule right now by not pulling Rex away immediately. But something stopped him, some instinct deeper than training. Rex's tail gave the smallest movement, not quite a wag. Rex never wagged during working mode, but a tiny shift from rigid vertical to something almost questioning. Had seen that tail in every emotional state, aggressive, alert, happy, focused. But this was something new. "Good," Emma whispered, so softly that only those closest could hear. "Good puppy." The words were gentle, almost singing. They carried none of the fear or excitement that usually pitched children's voices higher when encountering dogs. Instead, Emma spoke with the kind of calm certainty usually possessed by experienced animal handlers. Sophia's breath caught. Those were the first words Emma had spoken voluntarily in public in weeks, not at the grocery store when the cashier had asked her name, not at the park when other children invited her to play, not even at her grandmother's house last weekend. But here, facing a police dog, Emma found her voice. Rex's head tilted slightly, his ears rotating to catch Emma's soft words. His nose had stopped twitching, locked instead on the scent emanating from this small human. Could feel the leash relax just a fraction in his grip. Rex's weight had shifted, his rigid stance softening almost imperceptibly. "She's been in therapy," Sophia found herself saying, the words tumbling out to Officer in a desperate whisper. "Therapy for selective mutism. She works with therapy dogs. That's the only place she talks anymore, with the animals." Glanced quickly at Sophia, pieces clicking into place. That explained Emma's fearless approach, her calm demeanor, the professional way she moved. This child had been trained in her own way to interact with dogs. The therapy dogs had taught her confidence that humans couldn't. but therapy dogs were chosen specifically for their gentle temperament. Rex was trained for police work, for protection, for controlled aggression when necessary. The comparison was like putting a house cat next to a tiger and expecting the same behavior. Emma's hand was now 2 inches away, then 1 inch. Her small palm remained open, fingers slightly curled, the perfect non-threatening posture for greeting a dog. Where most children would have grabbed or lunged, Emma waited, patient beyond her years. Rex leaned forward. The crowd gasped collectively, a sound like wind through trees. Sophia's hand flew to her mouth, stifling a cry. His grip tightened on the leash reflexively, his muscles coiled to pull Rex back at the first sign of aggression. But Rex wasn't lunging. He was extending his nose toward Emma's hand with deliberate care, moving slowly, giving her time to retreat if she wanted. His lips remained closed, covering his teeth. His eyes, usually so intense and focused during work, had softened to something almost curious. Emma's fingertips touched Rex's nose. Time stopped. Contact. Actual physical contact between a 3-year-old child and a trained police K9, unsanctioned, unplanned, against every protocol. Waited for Rex to pull back, to bark, to react. But the big German shepherd simply stood there, allowing this tiny human to touch him. A camera flash went off nearby, then another. Someone in the crowd had started crying, actually crying, at the tension of the moment. A security guard had appeared at the edge of the gathering, speaking urgently into his radio, probably calling for backup or medical assistance. Emma's whole hand now rested against Rex's muzzle. Her small fingers stroked the dog's nose gently, the same way Sophia had seen her touch the therapy dogs at her sessions. But Emma's expression was different here. At therapy, Emma always looked determined, focused, like she was working hard to overcome something. Here, facing Rex, Emma looked peaceful, happy, like she'd found exactly where she belonged. "I don't believe this," muttered under his breath. In 5 years, he'd never seen Rex accept touch from a stranger without the proper introduction protocol. Never. Rex maintained professional boundaries even with his own family. The dog's training created walls that kept everyone at a distance. Except, apparently, for one 3-year-old girl with therapy dog experience, and absolutely no sense of appropriate fear. Emma took another step closer, and this time Sophia did move, her hand reaching out. "Emma, that's close enough, baby." But Officer stopped her again with a gentle shake of his head. Because Rex was doing something impossible, something that made question everything he knew about his partner. The powerful police dog was lowering his head, bowing it slightly, pressing his muzzle more firmly into Emma's small palm. It was a gesture of acceptance, of trust, of something that looked remarkably like affection. Emma smiled, the first genuine smile Sophia had seen on her daughter's face in months, and began to stroke Rex's head with both hands now, her movements gentle and sure. The crowd around them had grown to over 100 people, all watching in stunned silence as the impossible unfolded before their eyes. This wasn't supposed to happen. Police dogs didn't do this. 3-year-olds didn't approach like trained handlers. The script had been torn up and nobody knew what would happen next. Officer realized his hands were trembling slightly on the leash. He'd handled dangerous situations before, armed suspects, hostile crowds, genuine threats. But this terrified him more than anything in his career because he had no control over it. This moment belonged entirely to a little girl and his police dog, and all could do was watch and pray that whatever was happening between them wouldn't end in tragedy. Emma leaned forward and his heart stopped. She was going to hug Rex. This fearless, tiny child was actually going to wrap her arms around a trained police dog's neck. "Emma," Sophia whispered, but her voice had no strength left. She was watching her daughter do something impossible, something that all the isolation and silence of the past months, and she didn't know whether to be terrified or grateful. Emma's arms encircled Rex's neck. and the massive German Shepherd did something that made Officer Jake's eyes fill with unexpected tears. Rex's tail wagged. The single wag of Rex's tail sent a ripple of shock through the crowd. Officer Jake blinked hard, certain he'd imagined it. In 5 years of partnership, through countless demonstrations, training sessions, and real-world operations, Rex's tail had remained disciplined and controlled during work mode. The dog distinguished clearly between duty and off time, and right now, surrounded by strangers at a public event, Rex should have been all business. But there it was again, another wag, slow, deliberate, undeniable. Emma pulled back slightly from her embrace, her small hand still resting on either side of Rex's face. She looked directly into the dog's dark eyes, and her expression held a wisdom that seemed far beyond her 3 years. The little girl appeared to be studying Rex, reading him the way an experienced handler might assess a dog's emotional state. Then Emma spoke, and her voice carried across the hushed fairground with perfect clarity. "Good boy." 2 simple words, 2 of the most common words in the English language, words that people said to dogs thousands of times every day across the world. But the way Emma said them, with such pure, genuine warmth, such complete sincerity, made them sound like a benediction. Sophia felt something crack open inside her chest. Those words, her daughter's voice, speaking voluntarily to a stranger's dog in front of hundreds of people. The same child who hadn't been able to order her own ice cream last week, who whispered only to Sophia in the privacy of their home, who'd spent 8 months trapped in a prison of silence. "Good boy," Emma repeated, and this time she smiled, a radiant, unreserved smile that transformed her entire face. Officer felt his throat tighten painfully. In all his years in law enforcement, he'd maintained professional distance, kept his emotions in check, prided himself on staying objective. But watching this tiny girl speak those words to his partner with such innocent conviction, he felt something fundamental shift inside him. Rex's response was extraordinary. The big German Shepherd, trained to be alert and vigilant, trained to respond to commands in German to maintain professional distinction, trained to view the public with cautious assessment. This same dog pressed his head more firmly against Emma's small palms, and his tail began to wag with genuine enthusiasm. "Did you see that?" Someone in the crowd whispered urgently. "The dog's wagging its tail." "I'm getting this," another voice said, and could see dozens of phones held high, recording every second of this impossible interaction. Emma's voice rang out again, stronger now, filled with joy. "Good boy, puppy." She said puppy, not dog, not Rex, but puppy, the word that reduced every canine, regardless of size or training, to their essential nature. And somehow, impossibly, that's exactly what Rex became in that moment. Not Officer Rex of the Riverside Police Department K9 unit, not the dog who'd helped apprehend 17 suspects and completed over 800 hours of specialized training. Just a puppy receiving praise from a little girl who saw past all his training to the animal underneath. Watched in absolute amazement as Rex's entire posture transformed. The rigid alertness melted away. His ears, which had been forward and focused, relaxed into a softer position. His mouth opened slightly, tongue visible, in what recognized as a relaxed, happy expression. The dog's eyes, usually so intense and watchful during public appearances, had gone soft and gentle. "I don't understand what's happening," Sophia whispered to no one in particular, tears streaming freely down her face now. She doesn't talk to people. She doesn't even talk to dogs we don't know. What is this?" An elderly woman standing nearby, who'd been watching the entire scene unfold, reached out and squeezed Sophia's arm gently. "That's not just talking, honey," the woman said softly, her own eyes wet. "That's trust. That's healing. That's a miracle." Emma had begun stroking Rex's head with a rhythmic, soothing motion, still repeating "good boy" like a mantra. Each time she said it, her voice grew slightly stronger, more confident. It was as if the words themselves were feeding something inside her, breaking down walls that months of therapy had only begun to chip away at. Glanced around at the gathered crowd and saw his own astonishment reflected in dozens of faces. Parents held their children closer, not in fear now, but in wonder. Several people were openly crying. A tough-looking construction worker in a dusty shirt had his hand pressed against his mouth, his eyes bright with emotion. An elderly veteran, his VFW cap identifying his service, stood at attention with tears running down his weathered cheeks. "In 30 years on the force," came a gravelly voice behind, "I've never seen anything like this." Turned to see Captain, his commanding officer, standing at the edge of the crowd. She must have heard about the commotion and come to investigate. The captain was known for her no-nonsense approach and strict adherence to protocol, and stomach dropped. He was violating about 15 different K-9 unit policies right now. But Captain wasn't looking at with disapproval. She was staring at Emma and Rex with the same awestruck expression as everyone else, and her eyes were suspiciously bright. "Good boy," Emma said again, and now she giggled, an actual spontaneous laugh of pure delight. The sound was like bells, clear and joyful, cutting through the autumn air. "You're such a good boy." Rex's tail was wagging continuously now, a metronome of happiness that had only ever seen at home in private when the work vest came off. Never in public, never during duty hours, never with strangers present. Emma suddenly released Rex's face and took a small step backward. For a heart-stopping moment, thought the spell was broken, that Emma would retreat back to her mother, and this extraordinary moment would end. But instead, the little girl did something that made the entire crowd gasp in unison. She clapped her hands together 3 times, a sharp, clear sound, and commanded, "Sit." It wasn't in German. It wasn't the official command. It was a 3-year-old's version of a dog command, spoken with absolute confidence and zero doubt that she would be obeyed. Held his breath. Rex responded only to German commands during work. It was part of his training, part of what made him a professional police dog rather than a pet. The dog shouldn't respond to Emma's English command. He wouldn't respond. Rex sat immediately, his haunches dropping to the ground with perfect precision, his eyes never leaving Emma's face. The crowd erupted, not in screams or chaos, but in spontaneous applause and exclamations of disbelief. People were laughing and crying simultaneously, the emotional tension of the past few minutes releasing in a wave of collective joy. "Did that just happen?" muttered, staring at his partner in complete bewilderment. Did you actually?" Emma beamed at Rex, clearly delighted with herself. "Good boy," she praised, and then, with the unself-conscious grace of a young child, she bent down and kissed the top of Rex's head. Sophia made a small sound, half sob, half laugh, and covered her face with her hands. The past 8 months flashed through her mind in rapid succession. The incident at that had triggered Emma's selective mutism, the endless therapy sessions, the frustrated tears when Emma couldn't speak even when she desperately wanted to, the isolation from other children, the worried looks from family members who didn't understand. The nights Sophia had spent awake wondering if her daughter would ever find her voice again. And here in a dusty fairground in front of hundreds of strangers, with a police dog trained for danger, Emma had spoken. Not just spoken, she'd commanded, praised, connected, and laughed. She'd been more herself in these few minutes than in 8 months of careful, expensive therapy. "Good boy," Emma said one more time, and this time she wrapped her arms around Rex's neck again in a full embrace, burying her small face in his fur. "You're the best puppy in the whole world." Rex, impossibly, incredibly, leaned into the embrace. The powerful muscles that could take down a grown man relaxed completely. The dog, who'd been trained to maintain alertness at all times, closed his eyes and simply accepted this little girl's affection with something that looked remarkably like contentment. Officer looked down at the leash in his hand and realized it had gone completely slack. Rex wasn't pulling, wasn't resisting, wasn't maintaining the professional distance he'd been trained to keep. The dog had, in the span of a few minutes, completely abandoned his training in favor of connecting with a 3-year-old child. It should have been concerning. It should have prompted an immediate retraining session. It should have made question Rex's reliability as a working police dog. Instead, felt something warm and bright blooming in his chest, something that felt like hope, like witnessing the best of what both humans and animals could be when they connected authentically. "Good boy," Emma whispered into Rex's fur, and in those 2 simple words, she'd somehow captured everything beautiful about trust, innocence, and the inexplicable bonds that form between species when fear is absent and hearts are open. The crowd around them had swelled to nearly 200 people now, drawn by the commotion and the sight of something genuinely miraculous. Camera phones continued recording, capturing every second of this interaction that would soon spread far beyond the boundaries of Riverside's community safety fair. But in that moment, surrounded by witnesses yet existing in their own private world, a 3-year-old girl and a trained police dog had found something neither had been looking for. A connection that transcended training, therapy, protocol, and expectation. 2 words "good boy" had opened a door that everyone thought was locked, and the light streaming through was blinding in its brightness. Emma finally released Rex and stepped back, her small chest rising and falling with excited breaths. She looked up at Officer for the first time since approaching, and her eyes were shining with happiness. "He's a good boy," she told seriously, as if imparting vital information the officer might not have known. "A very, very good boy." Found he couldn't speak past the lump in his throat, so he simply nodded, not trusting his voice. Emma smiled at him, at a stranger, at a uniformed officer, at someone she'd never met before, and that smile held all the confidence and joy that had been missing from her life for 8 months. "Good boy," she said one final time to Rex, and then, with the casual certainty of a child who just accomplished something remarkable without fully understanding its significance, Emma turned and walked back to her mother, leaving Officer Jake and his trained police dog staring after her in stunned silence. For a long moment, nobody moved. Emma had walked back to her mother's arms, but the air itself seemed to vibrate with the energy of what had just occurred. Officer Jake stood frozen, the slack leash hanging uselessly in his hand, staring at Rex with an expression that bordered on betrayal. Then Rex did something that shattered every remaining piece of understanding of his partner. The big German shepherd whined, a soft, plaintive sound that had only heard a handful of times in 5 years, usually when Rex was injured or distressed. But this wasn't pain or stress. This was longing. Rex was staring after Emma with an intensity that had nothing to do with his police training and everything to do with raw emotion. "Easy boy," said automatically in German, the command for calm, but his voice lacked conviction. How could he command calm when he himself felt like the ground had shifted beneath his feet? Rex ignored him completely. The dog took a step forward, then another, pulling gently against the leash. His eyes never left Emma, who was now wrapped in Sophia's trembling embrace. His tail continued to wag, not the controlled, professional acknowledgement sometimes saw during positive training reinforcement, but the uninhibited, sweeping wag of a dog who'd found something wonderful and didn't want to lose it. Captain's voice cut through his daze. She'd pushed through the crowd and now stood beside him, her expression a mixture of concern and amazement. What the hell just happened here? Opened his mouth, closed it, tried again. Captain, I honestly don't know. I've never seen him act like this. Never." The crowd had erupted into excited chatter, the tension of the past minutes releasing in a flood of conversation. People were comparing the videos they'd captured on their phones, replaying the moment from different angles. A local news reporter who'd been covering the fair for a fluff piece was frantically calling her station, speaking urgently about getting a camera crew there immediately. But barely registered any of it. He was watching Rex, and what he saw was impossible. The powerful police dog, trained to be a weapon when necessary, had dropped to the ground. Not into a sit or a down position. Those were controlled, disciplined postures. Rex had simply collapsed onto his belly, and now, as watched in absolute shock, the dog rolled partially onto his side, exposing his vulnerable stomach. "Oh my God," someone in the crowd breathed. "Is that dog actually?" "He's showing submission," an elderly man said, his voice carrying authority. "Complete trust. I trained dogs for 40 years, and I've never seen a working dog do that with a stranger." His mind reeled. Submission. Rex was showing submission to a 3-year-old child he just met. Police dogs didn't do that. They couldn't do that. Their entire training was built around confidence, authority, controlled aggression when necessary. Submission was the antithesis of everything Rex represented. Emma had been watching from the safety of her mother's arms, and now she squealed with pure delight. Before Sophia could react, the little girl had wriggled free and was running back toward Rex, her small legs pumping with excitement. "Emma, no!" Sophia lunged after her daughter, but Captain caught her arm gently. "Wait," the captain said softly. "Just, let's see what happens." Sophia looked at her with wild eyes. "That's a police dog, he could." "I know what he could do," interrupted, her voice still gentle but firm. "I've worked with K9 units for 15 years, and I'm telling you I've never seen a dog respond like this. Whatever's happening here, it's not dangerous. Look at him." Sophia followed the captain's gaze to where Rex lay on his side, tail still wagging, his expression almost comically hopeful as Emma approached. The dog looked nothing like the formidable police K9 who'd been demonstrating apprehension techniques just 20 minutes earlier. He looked like an oversized puppy waiting for affection. Emma reached Rex and immediately dropped to her knees beside him. Her small hands found his belly, and she began rubbing it with the unself-conscious enthusiasm of a child who discovered something delightful. "Good boy," she praised, her voice ringing clear and joyful. "Such a good boy." Rex's back leg began to twitch, the involuntary response to having exactly the right spot scratched. His tongue lolled out, and his eyes half-closed in obvious pleasure. The transformation was so complete, so total, that several people in the crowd actually laughed. Not mockery, but the warm laughter that comes from witnessing something unexpectedly charming. "This is impossible," muttered, running a hand through his hair. "This doesn't happen. Rex doesn't do this." "Well, he's doing it now," Captain observed, and there was something in her voice, wonder, maybe, or the beginning of an idea. "How long have you two been partners?" 5 years, said, still unable to tear his eyes away from the scene. 5 years, and I've never seen him break protocol like this. Not once. He's always been absolutely professional, absolutely controlled. Even at home, he maintains boundaries. Emma had stretched out beside Rex now, lying on her stomach in the dusty fairground, her face inches from the dog's. She was giggling uncontrollably as Rex licked her cheek with gentle swipes of his tongue. "Puppy kisses," she announced to the world, as if this was the most natural thing that could possibly happen. Sophia had made it to her daughter's side, kneeling beside Emma with her hands hovering, ready to intervene if needed but increasingly convinced that no intervention would be necessary. She watched as Emma and Rex interacted with an ease that explanation, and tears continued to stream down her face. "She hasn't laughed like this in so long," Sophia whispered, not really speaking to anyone in particular. "I'd forgotten what her laugh sounded like." A woman in the crowd who'd been recording the entire interaction lowered her phone with tears in her eyes. "This is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen," she said to the person next to her. "That little girl and that dog, it's like they were meant to find each other." Finally forced himself to look away from Rex and Emma, scanning the crowd with professional assessment. What he saw was extraordinary. Nearly 300 people had gathered now, drawn by word of mouth and the visible emotion of those who'd witnessed the initial interaction. But there was no chaos, no pushing or shoving. Instead, people stood in respectful silence, many of them crying openly, watching this impossible bond form between child and dog. A teenage girl was sobbing into her boyfriend's shoulder. An elderly couple held hands tightly, both of them smiling through their tears. A group of off-duty firefighters stood together, these tough men who ran into burning buildings for a living, openly emotional at witnessing something so pure and unexpected. "Why is everyone crying?" asked, and realized his own voice was thick with emotion. Captain smiled, and when looked at her, he was surprised to see tears on her cheeks too. "Because we're watching something real," she said simply. "In a world that feels increasingly fake, increasingly divided, we're watching genuine connection happen right in front of us. That little girl isn't performing. That dog isn't following a script. This is just real." Emma had wrapped her arms around Rex's neck again, burying her face in his fur. Her voice, muffled but still audible, drifted across to where stood. "I love you, puppy. You're my best friend." Felt something crack in his chest. Best friend. Emma had known Rex for less than 10 minutes, but she'd claimed him completely, and impossibly, Rex had accepted that claim. The dog's eyes had closed, and he was making a sound had never heard before, a soft, rumbling purr of absolute contentment. "He's purring," said stupidly. "Dogs don't purr, but Rex is purring." "Dogs absolutely purr," corrected the elderly man who'd spoken earlier, stepping closer. "It's rare, but when they're completely relaxed, completely happy, they make that sound. I had one dog in 40 years who purred. You're lucky, officer. That dog of yours has found something special." Sophia was stroking Emma's hair gently, tears still falling. She looked up at Officer with an expression of wonder and gratitude. "I need to tell you something," she said, her voice shaking. "I need to explain why this matters so much." Knelt down beside Sophia, giving her his full attention. Captain moved closer as well, sensing the importance of what was about to be said. "8 months ago," Sophia began, her words coming in fits and starts, "Emma was at. There was an incident, a bad one. Another child's parent came in angry, shouting, threatening the staff. Emma was right there when it happened. She saw the whole thing. Security had to be called, police came, it was traumatic." Stomach dropped, and after that, "She stopped talking," Sophia said simply. "Selective mutism, the therapist called it. Emma physically couldn't speak in social situations, especially around strangers. The anxiety was too much. We've been in therapy for months, expensive therapy, play therapy, art therapy, and animal-assisted therapy." "The therapy dogs," said, understanding clicking into place. Sophia nodded. 3 times a week she works with trained therapy dogs. It's the only time she seemed like herself. The only time she talks freely. But even then, it's controlled environments with certified therapy animals. And she never speaks to the handlers, never speaks to anyone else in the room, just the dogs. "Until today," Captain said softly. "Until today," Sophia confirmed, looking at her daughter with shining eyes. "She spoke to Rex. She commanded him. She laughed, she played, she told him she loved him, in front of hundreds of people. Do you understand? This isn't just cute. This is my daughter breaking free of something that's been suffocating her for 8 months." Looked back at Emma and Rex, seeing them with new eyes. This wasn't just an unusual interaction between a child and a dog. This was a little girl who'd been trapped in silence, finding her voice through an unexpected connection with an animal who wasn't supposed to be gentle, but somehow became exactly what she needed. "Good boy," Emma murmured again into Rex's fur, the words almost a prayer now. Good boy." Rex's tail continued its steady wag, and as watched, the dog shifted slightly, moving his body to shelter Emma more completely. It was a protective gesture, ancient and instinctive, the way wild canines protected their pack's young. "He thinks she's his," realized aloud, his voice full of wonder. "Rex thinks Emma is his to protect." Captain nodded slowly. "And apparently Emma thinks Rex is hers, So the question is, officer, what are we going to do about it? Looked at his commanding officer, then back at the little girl and the police dog who lay intertwined in the dust of the fairground, completely oblivious to the hundreds of people watching them, lost in their own perfect moment of connection. I have absolutely no idea, admitted. This isn't in any training manual I've ever read. No, Captain agreed, a smile playing at the corners of her mouth. It isn't, but maybe that's exactly why it's so important. Emma had finally, reluctantly, allowed her mother to coax her away from Rex after another 15 minutes of play. The little girl's clothes were covered in dust, her pigtails had come half undone, and her face was flushed with happiness and excitement. As Sophia carried her toward the parking lot, Emma kept turning back, waving at Rex and calling out, "Bye, puppy. Bye, good boy." Each time Emma called out, Rex's ears would perk up and he would strain slightly against the leash, whining softly. The dog's eyes tracked Emma's departure with an intensity that made his chest ache. He'd never seen his partner so emotionally attached to anyone, not even himself. Captain had suggested they move away from the crowd to debrief, and had gratefully agreed. They found a quiet spot near the department's mobile command unit, though people still stared and whispered as they passed. Word had spread through the entire fair about what had happened. Was just beginning to process the incident when he heard running footsteps behind them. He turned to see Sophia jogging back, slightly breathless, with Emma bouncing on her hip. "Wait," Sophia called out. "Please wait. There's more I need to tell you about Emma, about why this happened." Captain gestured to a bench near the command unit. "Please sit, take your time." Sophia sat down heavily, adjusting Emma on her lap. The little girl was clutching her stuffed puppy again, but her eyes kept searching for Rex. When she spotted him sitting attentively beside Officer, Emma's face lit up. "Rex," she called out, and the dog's tail immediately began wagging. Noted with some resignation that Emma had somehow learned his partner's name, probably from hearing it during the demonstration. "I'm sorry," Sophia began, wiping at her eyes with her free hand. "I'm a mess. It's just what happened out there, what you witnessed. It's more significant than you could possibly know." Sat down on the bench opposite Sophia, allowing Rex to sit between them. The dog immediately oriented himself toward Emma, his focus completely on the little girl rather than on his handler. Tried not to feel jealous. "You mentioned the incident at," Captain prompted gently, "and the selective mutism." Sophia nodded, taking a shaky breath. "Yes, but there's context you need to understand. Emma's father, my husband, he died when Emma was 18 months old. Military, deployed overseas. An IED. Emma was too young to really remember him, but I think somehow she felt the loss anyway." His throat tightened. "I'm sorry for your loss." "Thank you," Sophia said quietly. "I thought I was handling it okay. I went back to work. I'm a nurse at Riverside General. My mother helped with Emma. We were managing. Emma was a normal, happy toddler, shy but normal. And then the incident happened at." Emma had started squirming on Sophia's lap, reaching toward Rex. Sophia set her daughter down, and Emma immediately toddled over to the dog, wrapping her small arms around his neck. Rex leaned into her embrace, his eyes half closing in contentment. "The man who came in angry," Sophia continued, her voice dropping. "He was a father picking up his son. He'd lost his job that day and he was yelling at the staff about the costs, about how he couldn't pay. He wasn't violent, he never touched anyone, but he was loud and aggressive. Security was called. Police arrived." She paused, looking directly at. The officers who responded were professional, de-escalated the situation perfectly, but Emma was there. She saw the man shouting, saw the police arrive, saw her caregivers frightened, and something in her just shut down. "Post-traumatic stress," Captain said softly. "That's what the therapist said," Sophia confirmed. Between losing her father, even though she was too young to consciously remember, and then witnessing that incident, Emma's sense of safety was shattered. She stopped talking to everyone except me. stopped engaging with other children. She'd cry every morning when I tried to take her too. I had to quit my job, move in with my mother, start over completely. Watched Emma stroke Rex's head with gentle, rhythmic movements. The little girl was humming softly to herself, completely at peace. "And the therapy dogs?" he asked. Sophia's face softened. That was Dr. Saidia, Emma's therapist. She specializes in animal-assisted therapy for childhood trauma. We started 3 months ago and it's been everything. Dogs don't judge. They don't have expectations. They respond to energy and emotion, not words. With the therapy dogs, Emma could practice being herself again without the pressure of human interaction. "That explains her approach," said, pieces clicking together. "The way she moved toward Rex, that was trained behavior." "Doctor taught her the proper way to approach dogs," Sophia confirmed. "Slow movements, calm energy, open palm, letting the dog come to her." Emma's been working with 3 different therapy dogs, gentle, specially trained animals chosen specifically for their temperament. She's made incredible progress. 2 weeks ago, she spoke to Doctor for the first time. Just a whisper, just hello, but it was something. Captain leaned forward, but today with Rex was different. "Completely different," Sophia said, her voice cracking with emotion. Today, Emma didn't whisper. She didn't hesitate. She ran straight to a dog she'd never met, a dog who's clearly not a gentle therapy animal, and she spoke clearly, confidently, joyfully. In front of hundreds of people. "That's not just progress, Captain. That's a breakthrough. That's my daughter fighting her way out of the darkness that's held her for 8 months." Emma had started singing to Rex now, a wordless melody that was surprisingly tuneful. Rex's tail kept tempo, wagging in time with her song. The big dog looked utterly enchanted, his fierce reputation completely forgotten. "And there's something else," Sophia continued, her voice dropping to almost a whisper. "Something I haven't told anyone except Doctor, Emma's father. He was a dog handler, military K-9 unit. He worked with German shepherds in explosive detection." His head snapped up. "What?" "He died with his dog," Sophia said, tears flowing freely now. "Max was the dog's name. They were together when the IED went off, both killed instantly. I have pictures of with Max, they're all over our apartment. Emma looks at them constantly. I think on some level Emma remembers. Maybe not consciously, but somewhere deep down she remembers her father's love for his dog, and when she saw Rex." She couldn't finish the sentence, overcome with emotion. Captain moved to sit beside Sophia, placing a comforting hand on her shoulder. Felt like he'd been punched in the stomach. Emma's father had been a K-9 handler, with a German shepherd, just like Rex. The connection suddenly made terrible, beautiful sense. Emma hadn't just been attracted to any dog, she'd been drawn to the specific type of dog that represented her lost father. "Does she know," asked quietly, "about her father and Max?" "I've told her stories," Sophia said, wiping her eyes. "Age-appropriate ones. About how Daddy worked with a special dog who helped keep people safe. She always wants to hear those stories before bed. But I never imagined she would make a connection like this." Emma had laid her head against Rex's side now, her small body rising and falling with the dog's breathing. She looked utterly peaceful, utterly safe, in a way Sophia recognized from old photos of with his daughter. "The therapy dogs were helpful," Sophia continued, her voice stronger now. "But they weren't this. They were trained to be gentle, to accept whatever behavior children displayed. They were passive partners in Emma's healing. But Rex responded to her, finished, understanding flooding through him. He didn't just accept her attention. He chose to engage with her. He made the decision to connect." "Exactly," Sophia breathed. "The therapy dogs let Emma practice being herself, but Rex saw her, really saw her, and chose her back. That's what broke through. Emma didn't just find her voice with Rex. She found validation. She found acceptance from an animal who didn't have to give it, who chose to give it anyway." Captain had pulled out her phone and was scrolling through something, her expression thoughtful. "Ms. Martinez, do you have a few minutes? I'd like to call Doctor if you can give me her contact information. I want to understand the therapeutic implications of what happened here today." Sophia nodded, rattling off the phone number from memory. As Captain stepped away to make the call, moved closer to Sophia, watching Emma and Rex together. "I need to apologize," said quietly. "When Emma first ran toward Rex, I was terrified. I was sure something terrible was going to happen. I've been trained to see Rex as a weapon, as a tool. I forgot that underneath all that training, he's still a dog, and dogs have instincts that go deeper than any training we can provide." "What kind of instincts?" Sophia asked. Watched Rex gently nuzzle Emma's hair, the dog's entire demeanor soft and protective. Pack instincts, protection instincts. Rex recognized something in Emma, maybe her vulnerability, maybe the echoes of her trauma, maybe something we can't even name. And he responded the way dogs have responded to human children for thousands of years. He claimed her as pack, as his to protect. "Is that why he rolled over?" Sophia asked. Doctor explained that when dogs expose their bellies, it's a sign of trust. "Trust and affection," confirmed. "In 5 years, Rex has never done that with anyone during work hours. He's a professional. He maintains boundaries. But with Emma, all of that went out the window. She broke through every wall, every bit of training, straight to the heart of who Rex really is underneath the vest and the badge." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, watching Emma drift off to sleep against Rex's side. The dog had adjusted his position slightly to support her better, moving with careful precision to avoid waking her. Captain returned, her expression thoughtful. "I just spoke with Doctor. She's asking if you can bring Emma by her office tomorrow. She wants to do an assessment, wants to understand what happened today from a therapeutic perspective. But she said something interesting." "What?" Sophia asked. "She said that sometimes traditional therapy can only take a patient so far. That real breakthroughs often happen in unexpected moments, with unexpected catalysts. She said what happened today with Rex might accomplish more for Emma's healing than months of controlled therapy sessions could." Captain paused, looking at. "She also said that if possible, it would be therapeutically beneficial for Emma to have continued contact with Rex." His eyebrows rose. "Continued contact." "She was very clear," continued. "The bond Emma formed with Rex today is significant. Breaking that bond abruptly could be harmful, could reinforce Emma's trauma about loss and abandonment. But maintaining the connection, supervised, controlled contact, could be the key to Emma's complete recovery." Sophia's hand flew to her mouth. "Are you saying, is that even possible? He's a police dog, you can't just—" "I don't know," Captain admitted. "I don't know if it's possible or practical or even advisable from a K-9 unit perspective. But I do know that what I witnessed today was extraordinary. And I know that this department is supposed to serve the community. If there's a way to help this little girl heal while maintaining Rex's capabilities as a working dog, then we need to explore it." Looked down at Emma, sleeping peacefully against his partner. Rex's eyes were open, watchful, protective. The dog looked at for just a moment, and in that look saw something he'd never seen before, a question, almost a plea. Rex wanted this, wanted to be part of Emma's healing, wanted continued contact with this little girl who'd seen past his training to the gentleness underneath. "There might be a way," heard himself saying, even as his rational mind screamed that this was crazy, unprecedented, completely outside protocol. "There might be a way to make this work." Sophia's eyes filled with hope. "Really?" "I don't know," admitted, "but I think we need to try for Emma, and honestly for Rex too. Whatever happened between them today changed something fundamental. I can't explain it, but I can feel it. This matters." Emma stirred slightly in her sleep, her small hand closing around a tuft of Rex's fur. The dog's tail gave a gentle wag, and he shifted again, settling more firmly around the sleeping child like a living blanket. "Good boy," Emma murmured in her sleep. "Good boy, Rex." And knew, with absolute certainty, that nothing would ever be quite the same again. Officer Jake carried a sleeping Emma back to Sophia's car while Rex walked beside them with unusual gentleness, his movements careful and measured. After exchanging contact information and promising to discuss possibilities with Captain, and Rex watched Sophia's old sedan pull away from the fairground. Emma had woken just enough to wave sleepily from her car seat, and Rex had whined softly, his eyes tracking the vehicle until it disappeared around a corner. "Come on, partner," said quietly, tugging the leash. "We've got to finish our shift." But Rex remained rooted to the spot, staring at the empty street where Emma's car had vanished. Had to give the command twice more before Rex finally, reluctantly, followed him back toward the command unit. What didn't know, what none of them knew yet, was that the moment Emma had said "good boy" to Rex was already spreading across the internet like wildfire. Melissa, a 24-year-old marketing coordinator who'd been at the fair with her nephew, had posted the video to Tik at 11:47 a.m. with a simple caption. 3-year-old approaches police dog, and this happens Faith Humanity 9. By 2:00 p.m., the video had 50,000 views. By 5:00 p.m., it had crossed 1 million. By 8:00 p.m., it had been viewed 10 million times and was trending on every major social media platform. Melissa's phone had become unusable, overwhelmed by notifications. Comments poured in by the thousands from every corner of the internet. "I'm literally sobbing at my desk right now. This is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. That dog knew that little girl needed him. Animals are so much more intuitive than we give them credit for." As a K-9 officer with 15 years experience, I can tell you this is extraordinary. Police dogs don't behave this way with strangers. Something special happened here. My daughter has selective mutism too. Seeing this gives me so much hope. Thank you for sharing. But it wasn't just Tik. The video had been shared to Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and dozens of other platforms. Each version accumulated its own millions of views, its own thousands of comments. News aggregator sites picked it up. Parent blogs shared it. Dog training forums analyzed it frame by frame. By Sunday morning, less than 24 hours after the fair, the video had been viewed more than 50 million times across all platforms. Sophia's phone started ringing at 6:30 a.m. Sunday morning. She stumbled out of bed, groggy and confused, to find 17 missed calls and over 100 text messages. Her social media accounts, which she rarely used, were exploding with notifications. "What in the world?" she muttered, scrolling through messages from people she hadn't spoken to in years, all saying variations of the same thing. "Is this Emma? Is this your Emma?" Then she saw the video. Someone at the fair had captured Sophia's face clearly in the background, and an internet sleuth had somehow tracked down her Facebook profile. Now her personal page was being flooded with friend requests, messages, and comments from complete strangers. Sophia's hands trembled as she watched the video of her daughter approaching Rex. Seeing it from an outside perspective was different than experiencing it in person. The camera had caught everything: Emma's fearless approach, the crowd's gasped response, Rex's impossible transformation, and Emma's clear, joyful voice saying "good boy" with such pure conviction. The comments beneath the video made Sophia cry all over again. "This restored my faith in humanity. I've watched this 20 times and I cry every single time. That little girl is braver than most adults. The way that dog protected her, animals know. They just know." But there were other comments too, ones that made Sophia's stomach clench. "This is dangerous and irresponsible. Police dogs are trained weapons. The mother should have prevented this. What if the dog had attacked? This is terrible parenting. That child could have been seriously hurt." Sophia felt simultaneously proud and terrified. Her daughter's breakthrough moment, her beautiful victory over silence and fear, was now public property. Millions of strangers were watching, commenting, judging. Her phone rang again. This time she answered. "Ms. Martinez, this is Jennifer from Good Morning America. We'd love to have you and Emma on the show to discuss what happened yesterday. We're prepared to fly you to New York, put you up in a hotel, and we'd of course compensate you for your time." Sophia hung up, overwhelmed. The phone immediately rang again. CNN, then NBC, then a producer from The Ellen Show, then People magazine, then a literary agent asking if she'd considered writing a book about Emma's journey. In her bedroom, Emma was still sleeping, clutching her stuffed puppy and occasionally murmuring Rex in her dreams, completely unaware that she'd become an overnight internet sensation. Officer Sunday morning was equally chaotic. He'd woken to find his personal cell phone, which very few people had the number to, ringing incessantly. The Riverside Police Department's public information line had been overwhelmed. The department's Facebook page, which normally received a few dozen interactions per post, had been flooded with over 100,000 comments overnight. Captain had called an emergency meeting at the station for 9:00 a.m. When arrived with Rex, he found the parking lot surrounded by news vans from every major network. Reporters surged forward as he exited his vehicle, shouting questions. "Officer, can you tell us about the little girl? Is Rex available for interviews? What was going through your mind when Emma approached? Will Rex face any disciplinary action for breaking protocol?" Pushed through the crowd without commenting, though that last question sent a chill down his spine. He hadn't even considered that Rex might face consequences for his behavior at the fair. Inside the station, he found Captain in her office with Police Chief David Harrison, the department's public information officer, and a liaison from the city manager's office. All of them looked exhausted despite the early hour. Chief Harrison said, gesturing to a chair, "Sit. We need to talk about what happened yesterday and how we're going to handle this media circus." "Sir, I can explain." Harrison held up a hand. "I've watched the video about 50 times. I don't need an explanation of what happened. What I need is a strategy for managing this. The phone hasn't stopped ringing since last night. Every major news outlet in the country wants an interview. We've had requests from morning shows, evening news, documentaries, even a streaming service that wants to do a series about K-9 units." Blinked a series. "This has become a national story," the public information officer, Lieutenant Maria Santos, interjected. She was scrolling through her tablet, her expression somewhere between amazed and stressed. "It's trending on Twitter, Tik, Instagram, everywhere. The video has been viewed over 50 million times. 50 million. There are think pieces being written about it. Parenting experts are weighing in. Dog trainers are analyzing it. It's everywhere." "Some of the coverage is positive," Captain added carefully. "People are calling it heartwarming, a symbol of hope, an example of the bond between humans and animals. But some of it is critical," Chief Harrison finished. "There are questions about safety protocols, about whether Rex's behavior indicates a training failure, about whether the department should have prevented the interaction." Felt his jaw tighten. "Rex didn't fail any training, sir. What he did was—" "Extraordinary," Harrison interrupted. "I know. I saw it. Everyone saw it. But we need to control the narrative here. We need to show that this department values both community connection and safety. We need to address the concerns while also celebrating what appears to have been a genuinely beautiful moment." Rex, who'd been sitting patiently at his feet, suddenly stood and moved to the office window. He pressed his nose against the glass, staring out at the parking lot as if searching for something, or someone. "He's looking for her," said quietly. "For Emma. He's been restless since yesterday." The room fell silent for a moment, everyone watching the powerful police dog act more like a separated pet than a trained law enforcement officer. Lieutenant Santos broke the silence. "We've prepared a statement. It emphasizes Rex's extensive training, notes that the situation was carefully monitored, and highlights the positive outcome. We're positioning this as an example of how well-trained police canines can be both effective law enforcement tools and positive community ambassadors. "What about Emma and her mother?" asked. "Have they been contacted?" "Extensively," said dryly. "Ms. Martinez called me this morning. She's being hounded by media. Her Facebook profile was made public somehow, and she's getting hundreds of messages. She's overwhelmed and frightened. She didn't want this attention. She just wanted to take her daughter to a community fair." His hands clenched into fists. "This isn't fair to them. Emma's dealing with trauma. She needs privacy, not cameras in her face." "Agreed," Chief Harrison said, "which is why we're going to offer Ms. Martinez our support. We'll provide a statement on her behalf if she wants one. We'll help manage the media pressure. And," he paused, exchanging a look with Captain, "we're going to explore the possibility of creating a formal program." His head snapped up. "A program?" Leaned forward. "A K9 community therapy program. Rex wouldn't be the only dog involved. We'd train specifically for it, bring in therapy experts, create proper protocols. But the idea would be to use our K9 unit for community healing, particularly with children who experience trauma." "Using police dogs as therapy animals," said slowly, his mind racing. "Has that been done before?" "Not extensively," Lieutenant Santos admitted. "There are programs where officers bring their K9 partners to schools for educational visits, but nothing quite like what we're proposing. This would be groundbreaking. And it would allow Emma and Rex to maintain contact," Captain added quietly. "Under supervised professional circumstances. Dr. Emma's therapist has already agreed to consult on the program development. She thinks it could be revolutionary for childhood trauma treatment." Looked down at Rex, who'd returned from the window and was now sitting at his feet, but his ears remained perked toward the parking lot, still listening for Emma. The dog's devotion to a child he'd known for less than an hour was undeniable. "This could change everything," said. "For Rex, for the department, for kids like Emma." "Yes," Chief Harrison agreed. "Which is why we need to get this right. The whole world is watching now. Whatever we do next, it needs to be perfect." As if on cue, his phone buzzed with a text message. He glanced at it and felt his breath catch. It was from Sophia. "Emma keeps asking when she can see Rex again. She's talking more this morning than she has in months. Whatever magic happened yesterday, it's still working. Please tell me there's a way to make this continue." Showed the message to Captain, who smiled softly and nodded. "There's a way," said. "We'll find a way." Outside, the news vans continued to multiply, satellite dishes extending toward the sky like technological flowers seeking sun. Inside, a police chief, his officers, and one very special German shepherd were about to embark on a journey that would change not just their lives, but the lives of countless children struggling to find their voices in a world that had gone silent for them. The video continued to spread. By Monday morning, it would have over 100 million views. By Tuesday, international news outlets would be covering it. By Wednesday, the governor of California would call to express interest in expanding the program statewide. But in that quiet moment in Captain's office, with morning sunlight streaming through the windows and Rex periodically checking for Emma's return, the viral nature of what had happened felt less important than the simple truth at its heart. A little girl had found her voice, and a police dog had found his purpose. "Good boy," whispered to Rex, echoing Emma's words. "You're such a good boy." Rex's tail wagged once, but his eyes remained fixed on the door. By Monday afternoon, the Riverside Police Department had been forced to set up a dedicated phone line just to handle inquiries about Emma and Rex. The original video had surpassed 150 million views across all platforms, and copycat videos were emerging. Parents bringing their children to meet police K9s, therapy organizations analyzing the interaction, dog trainers breaking down Rex's body language frame by frame. But amid the chaos, Captain was working on something that had never been done before in American law enforcement. She sat in a conference room with Dr. Emma's therapist, Dr. Robert, a veterinary behaviorist who specialized in working dogs, Lieutenant Maria Santos, officer, and Sofia Martinez, who looked overwhelmed but determined. Emma was in an adjacent room with a victim advocate volunteer, playing with toys and occasionally peering through the window to see if Rex was visible. The dog was outside with another K-9 officer, though his attention kept drifting toward the building where Emma waited. "Let me be clear about what we're proposing," Captain began, pulling up a presentation on her laptop. "This isn't just about Emma and Rex, though they're the catalyst. We're talking about creating the first certified K-9 therapeutic outreach program in the country, a program that could serve dozens of children dealing with trauma, anxiety, and selective mutism." Doctor nodded enthusiastically. "The therapeutic potential is enormous. Traditional therapy dogs are wonderful, but they're specifically bred and trained for gentleness. What happened with Rex was different. Emma responded to his strength, his authenticity, his realness. He wasn't performing therapy, he was genuinely connecting." "But can that be replicated?" Doctor asked, his tone professional but skeptical. "Rex's response to Emma was spontaneous, instinctive. Can we create protocols around something that organic?" "We don't need to replicate the exact interaction," Doctor explained. "We need to create opportunities for similar interactions to occur naturally. Supervised, structured opportunities where children can meet working K-9s in controlled environments. The dogs won't be asked to perform, they'll simply be themselves and will facilitate connections." Sofia had been quiet, but now she spoke up, her voice tentative. "I need to know that Emma will be safe. That video, people are saying I'm a bad mother for letting her approach Rex. I need to know that if we continue this, if Emma becomes part of this program, she won't be at risk." Officer leaned forward. "Ms. Martinez, I give you my word. Rex would never hurt Emma. I've never been more certain of anything. But beyond that, every interaction would be supervised by trained professionals. We'd have protocols, safety measures, immediate intervention capabilities. This wouldn't be casual, it would be a formal therapeutic program with every safeguard we can imagine." "And what about Rex?" Sofia asked, looking at with concern. "This video has made him famous. People recognize him now. Does that put him at risk? Does it compromise his ability to do his job?" It was a question had been wrestling with since Sunday morning. The answer came from an unexpected source. Lieutenant Santos pulled up a document on her tablet. "Actually, the publicity might enhance Rex's effectiveness. We've been analyzing the community response, and it's overwhelmingly positive. People who were previously nervous around police K-9s are now seeing them differently. Parents are teaching their children about Rex's gentleness. The department's community approval ratings have jumped 15 points in 2 days. Public perception of law enforcement is at historic lows nationally," Captain added. "But this story, this genuine moment of connection, is changing minds. People are remembering that police officers and their K-9 partners are part of the community, not separate from it." Doctor cleared his throat. "I've reviewed the video extensively, and I've consulted with colleagues across the country. Rex's behavior, while unusual, doesn't indicate any failure in his police training. If anything, it demonstrates exceptional emotional intelligence. He assessed Emma as non-threatening and responded with appropriate gentleness while maintaining his core capabilities." "So you're saying he can still do his job?" Sofia asked. "I'm saying he can do his job better," Doctor corrected. "Working dogs benefit from varied experiences. The rigid separation between work mode and off mode can actually create stress. Allowing Rex to engage in therapeutic work alongside his police duties could make him more well-rounded, more emotionally resilient." Captain advanced her presentation to a detailed proposal. Here's what we're envisioning. Emma becomes our first junior handler, an honorary position, of course, given her age. She would visit the station twice weekly for supervised sessions with Rex. These sessions would be documented by Doctor for therapeutic assessment and by our training officers for K-9 behavioral monitoring. Junior handler, Emma's voice came from the doorway. Everyone turned to see the little girl standing there, her eyes wide with hope. The victim advocate stood behind her, smiling apologetically. She heard Rex and insisted on coming in, the woman explained. Sophia started to stand, but Emma was already walking into the room with that same fearless determination she'd shown at the fair. She walked directly to Officer and looked up at him with complete trust. "Can I see Rex?" she asked clearly, her voice stronger than Sophia had heard in months. "Please, I want to see my puppy." Felt his throat tighten. Her puppy. Emma had claimed Rex completely. He looked at Captain, who nodded. "He's right outside," said gently. "Would you like me to bring him in?" Emma nodded vigorously, then surprised everyone by taking his hand. "Come on," she said, tugging him toward the door. "He's waiting for me, I know he is." 5 minutes later, Rex was brought into the conference room, and the reaction was everything Sophia had hoped for and feared. The big German shepherd's entire demeanor changed the moment he saw Emma. His tail began wagging so hard his whole back end moved. He pulled toward her with gentle insistence, whining softly. Released the leash, and Rex went directly to Emma, who dropped to her knees with her arms open. The dog pressed against her, licking her face, his tail creating a small windstorm. Emma giggled, that same bright, uninhibited laugh from the fair, and wrapped her arms around Rex's neck. "I missed you," Emma declared. "I missed you so much, Rex. Were you a good boy?" Rex's answer was to roll onto his back, offering his belly in complete submission. Emma immediately began rubbing his stomach, praising him continuously. "Such a good boy, the best puppy. I love you, Rex." Doctor was recording the interaction on her tablet, tears streaming down her face. "This is remarkable," she whispered. "The confidence, the verbal expression, the emotional openness. This is months of progress compressed into days." Sophia watched her daughter with a mixture of joy and terror. Emma was so happy, so completely herself with Rex. But what would happen if this ended? What if the program didn't work out? What if Rex had to stop seeing Emma? As if reading her thoughts, Captain moved to stand beside Sophia. "We're going to make this work," she said quietly. "I promise you, whatever it takes, we're going to create a program that allows Emma and Rex to continue this relationship while also helping other children." "How?" Sophia asked, her voice breaking. "How can you promise that?" Pulled out her phone and showed Sophia an email. "This is from the governor's office. They want to fund a pilot program. The state is prepared to invest $500,000 in developing therapeutic K-9 programs across California, with Riverside as the flagship location. Emma and Rex aren't just a heartwarming story anymore, Ms. Martinez. They're the foundation of something that could help thousands of children." Sophia read the email, her hands shaking. $500,000, a statewide program, Emma at the center of it all. "I don't want her exploited," Sophia said fiercely. "I don't want her turned into some poster child or used for publicity." "Neither do we," interjected. He was watching Emma and Rex with soft eyes, seeing his partner happier than he'd ever witnessed. "This program protects Emma as much as it helps her. Everything will be private, confidential, therapeutic. The media attention will die down eventually, but the program will continue." Doctor joined them, still recording Emma and Rex's interaction. "Sophia, I've been doing this work for 20 years. I've never seen a breakthrough like this. Emma's selective mutism was severe. I was preparing you for years of treatment, possibly medication, potentially residential therapy. And then she met Rex and something shifted. This isn't exploitation. This is healing." Emma had stretched out on the floor now, using Rex as a pillow. The big dog lay perfectly still, his eyes half closed, radiating contentment. Emma was talking to him in a steady stream, telling him about her stuffed animals, her favorite foods, a dream she'd had. Words flowed from her like water from a long-blocked spring. "When would this start?" Sophia asked, her resolve weakening as she watched her daughter's transformation. "Immediately, if you agree," Captain said. "We'll start with twice-weekly sessions here at the station. Emma and Rex will spend an hour together under supervision. Doctor will monitor Emma's progress. Our K-9 training officers will monitor Rex's behavior and work performance. After 3 months, we'll assess and expand to include other children." "Other children?" Sophia looked up sharply. Doctor nodded. "I have a waiting list of over 40 children who could benefit from this type of therapy. Not all of them will respond like Emma. Her connection with Rex is unique. But even if we can help a fraction of them, the program will be worth it." Sophia looked around the room at the faces watching her expectantly. Police officers, therapists, administrators, all of them believing in this impossible thing. Then she looked at Emma, who was now singing softly to Rex, her small hand stroking his head in that rhythmic, soothing pattern. "Okay," Sophia whispered. "Okay, we'll do it." The room erupted in smiles and quiet exclamations. Captain immediately began making calls. Doctor started outlining a therapeutic protocol. Lieutenant Santos began drafting press releases. But Officer simply walked over to where Emma lay with Rex and knelt down beside them. Emma looked up at him and smiled, a smile with no fear, no hesitation, just pure happiness. "Officer," Emma said seriously, "Rex is the best dog in the whole world. Did you know that?" Felt his eyes burn with unexpected tears. "Yeah, kiddo," he said softly. "I'm starting to figure that out." Emma reached out and took his hand, then placed it on Rex's head beside her own small hand. "We can share him," she said generously. "He can be both of ours. Is that okay?" Looked at this 3-year-old child who'd somehow taught a trained police dog to love, who'd found her voice through an impossible connection, who was now offering to share that connection with him. He thought about all the years he'd worked with Rex, all the calls they'd answered, all the training they'd completed. He'd thought he knew his partner completely. But Emma had shown him something he'd missed, that underneath all the training and discipline and professional distance, Rex was still capable of pure, uncomplicated love. And that love, it turned out, was the most powerful tool they possessed. "Yeah," Emma said, his voice rough with emotion. "We can share him, that's more than okay." Rex, lying between them, sighed deeply, a sound of complete contentment, and closed his eyes, his tail giving one last gentle wag before he settled into peace. Outside, news vans still circled the station, looking for their next story. Social media continued to buzz with speculation and commentary. The video continued to spread, reaching new audiences every hour. But inside the Riverside Police Department conference room, something quieter and more profound was taking root. A partnership between a 3-year-old girl fighting for her voice, a police dog discovering his purpose, and a community learning that healing sometimes comes from the most unexpected places. "Good boy," Emma murmured, already getting sleepy. "Good boy, Rex, my good boy." And Rex, professional police K-9, trained weapon, fierce protector. Rex wagged his tail and silently agreed. He was her good boy. Now and always. 3 months had passed since that September morning at the Riverside Community Fair, and the world had changed in ways nobody could have predicted. Emma Martinez stood in front of the mirror in her bedroom, adjusting the small navy blue vest that had been custom-made for her. Embroidered across the back in gold letters were the words, "Junior K-9 Handler Riverside PD." A small badge was pinned to the front, gleaming in the morning sunlight streaming through her window. "Are you ready, baby?" Sophia called from the doorway, her phone in hand to capture this moment. Her daughter, her once silent, fear-bound daughter, was about to address a crowd of over 200 people at the Spring Community Fair. The same fair where Emma had first met Rex, now returned for its seasonal edition. "Almost, Mommy," Emma called back, her voice clear and confident. She was adjusting her pigtails, wanting them to be perfect. "Do you think Rex will like my vest?" Sophia felt the familiar sting of happy tears. These days, she cried more from joy than sorrow. "He's going to love it, sweetheart, just like he loves everything about you." The past 3 months had been extraordinary. Emma's twice-weekly sessions with Rex had become the highlight of both their weeks. Under doctor's careful supervision, Emma had blossomed. The selective mutism that had imprisoned her for 8 months had crumbled away, week by week, word by word, until one day doctor had declared that Emma no longer met the diagnostic criteria. She was healed, not completely, not without scars, but functionally, beautifully healed. But Emma's transformation was just the beginning. The K9 Therapeutic Outreach Program had officially launched 6 weeks ago, with Emma as its first success story and its youngest ambassador. Doctor had carefully selected 12 other children from her waiting list, kids dealing with selective mutism, anxiety disorders, PTSD from various traumas, and social communication disorders. Each child was paired with a therapy session involving one of 3 police K9s who'd been evaluated and approved for the program. Rex, of course, and 2 other dogs from neighboring departments who'd shown similar gentle capabilities. The results had been remarkable. A 7-year-old boy who hadn't spoken since witnessing a car accident had whispered his first words to a Belgian named Apollo. A 9-year-old girl with severe anxiety had learned to manage her panic attacks by practicing breathing exercises while petting a German shepherd named Luna. A 5-year-old with autism had made his first sustained eye contact with anyone in months while training Rex to perform simple commands. The program had attracted national attention. 60 Minutes had done a segment. The Today Show had featured Emma and Rex in a tearful interview that had been viewed over 30 million times. Police departments from across the country were calling, wanting to replicate the program. Doctor had been invited to present at 3 major psychology conferences. An officer had been promoted to K9 Unit Coordinator, overseeing the expansion of therapeutic services while maintaining Rex's law enforcement duties. But today was special for a different reason. Today, Emma would demonstrate to the public how the program worked. Today, she would show other scared, silent children that it was possible to find your voice again. The spring community fair was massive compared to the fall event. The city had transformed the entire downtown area into a celebration of community, with the K9 Therapeutic Outreach Program as the featured attraction. A stage had been erected in the central plaza, with seating for hundreds. Local news crews were present, along with several national outlets who'd returned to cover the Emma and Rex update. Officers stood backstage with Rex, checking the dog's vest one final time. Rex was wearing his standard police K9 vest, but attached to it now was a second patch, Therapeutic Services Certified. The dog seemed to understand that today was important. His tail was wagging steadily, and his eyes kept searching the crowd for one particular small person. "She'll be here soon, buddy," said, scratching Rex behind the ears. "You know Emma, she's never late when it comes to seeing you." As if on cue, heard a squeal of delight. "Rex." Emma came running through the backstage area, her new vest flapping slightly, her face lit up with pure joy. Rex's entire body began to wiggle with excitement. When Emma reached him, she threw her arms around his neck, and Rex responded by licking her face enthusiastically while his tail created a small windstorm. "I missed you," Emma said, even though she'd seen Rex just 2 days ago at their regular session. "Did you miss me? Were you a good boy?" Rex's response was to gently knock Emma over with his enthusiasm, then immediately drop beside her to offer his belly for scratching, their ritual greeting that never got old. Sophia arrived, slightly out of breath from chasing her energetic daughter. "Emma, you need to be careful with your vest, we just got it." But she was smiling. These days, Sophia smiled more than she ever thought possible. The past 3 months had given her daughter back, not the quiet, fearful child from before the trauma, but a new Emma, braver, stronger, more confident. An Emma who spoke to strangers, who volunteered to read aloud in her preschool class, who'd made 3 new friends. An Emma who'd found her voice and refused to be silent ever again. Captain appeared, clipboard in hand, looking professional but warm. "Emma, are you ready? We're about to start." Emma scrambled to her feet, suddenly serious. "I'm ready, Captain. I practiced my speech with Mommy and with Rex. We're going to be great." "I know you will," said, kneeling down to Emma's level. "Remember, if you get nervous." "Look at Rex," Emma finished confidently. "He'll help me be brave, he always does." The program began with Captain providing opening remarks, explaining the origins and success of the K-9 Therapeutic Outreach Program. She showed statistics: 12 children served so far, with measurable improvement in all cases. She explained the careful protocols, the supervision, the collaboration between law enforcement and mental health professionals. She made it clear that this wasn't just a feel-good story. It was a legitimate therapeutic intervention backed by data and professional oversight. Then it was time for Emma's demonstration. Walked onto the stage with Rex, and the crowd erupted in applause and cheers. Rex had become something of a celebrity, his gentle nature making him beloved across the community. But Rex's attention wasn't on the crowd. His eyes were locked on the small figure waiting in the wings, Emma. "Ladies and," said into the microphone, his voice carrying across the plaza, "3 months ago, I thought I knew everything about my partner, Rex. I thought I understood his capabilities, his limitations, his purpose. And then a 3-year-old girl taught me that I'd been wrong about all of it." The crowd laughed softly, many of them wiping away tears already. "Rex is still a fully functional police K-9, continued. "Last month, he helped track a missing elderly man with dementia. We found him safe within hours. 2 weeks ago, he assisted in a narcotics arrest. Rex hasn't lost any of his law enforcement capabilities, but he's gained something equally important: the ability to heal." Paused, looking toward the wings. And the person who discovered that ability is here today to share her story. Please welcome our first junior K-9 handler, Miss Emma Martinez. Emma walked onto the stage, and the crowd rose to their feet in a standing ovation. She looked tiny beside Officer and Rex, but she walked with her head high, her small hand confidently holding the microphone that had been specially adjusted to her height. Rex immediately moved to stand beside Emma, his body positioned protectively. Emma reached down and placed her hand on his head, their grounding gesture, the physical connection that gave her courage. "Hi, everyone," Emma said, her voice clear despite the large crowd. "My name is Emma, and this is my best friend, Rex." The crowd applauded, and Emma smiled, gaining confidence. "A long time ago, well, it feels like a long time, but Mommy says it was only a year ago, something scary happened and I stopped talking. I wanted to talk, but the words got stuck inside me. It made me really sad. Mommy took me to see Doctor, and she's really nice. Doctor has special dogs that help kids like me, but the therapy dogs were too quiet. They were nice, but they didn't see me." Emma paused, looking down at Rex. The dog gazed up at her with absolute devotion. "Then I met Rex at the fair. He wasn't a therapy dog. He's a police dog, which means he's supposed to be tough and serious. But when I said good boy to him, something magic happened. Rex saw me, the real me, under all the scared feelings, and he loved me anyway." Sophia, watching from the front row, was openly crying. Half the audience was crying with her. "Now I come to the police station twice a week, and Rex and I practice things together. Sometimes I teach him tricks. He can shake hands now. Sometimes we just sit together and I tell him about my day. And sometimes when I feel the scared feelings trying to come back, I put my hand on Rex's head like this." Emma demonstrated, her small hand resting on Rex's broad skull. "And I remember that I'm brave. Because Rex is brave and he's my friend, so I can be brave too. Emma looked directly at the crowd, her young face serious with purpose. If you have a kid who's scared and quiet like I was, this program can help. Doctor and officer and captain made something special. They made a place where police dogs can show kids that it's okay to be strong and gentle at the same time, where kids can learn that being afraid doesn't mean you can't be brave. She paused, then added with perfect 3-year-old logic, and also police dogs give really good cuddles. The crowd burst into laughter and applause. Even the cynical reporters in the back were smiling, their cameras capturing every moment. Stepped forward. Emma is going to demonstrate some of the therapeutic techniques we use in the program. These aren't just tricks, they're tools that help children like Emma build confidence and communication skills. For the next 10 minutes, Emma led Rex through a series of exercises. She commanded him to sit, stay, and come, each successful command building her confidence. She demonstrated the grounding technique that Doctor had developed, where children placed both hands on the dog and took deep breaths to manage anxiety. She showed how children in the program learned to read the dog's body language, developing empathy and social awareness. But the most powerful moment came at the end, when Emma set down the microphone and simply hugged Rex. The big German shepherd leaned into her embrace, his eyes closing, his tail wagging slowly. It was a moment of pure connection, pure love, captured by a dozen cameras but existing in its own sacred space. "Good boy," Emma whispered into Rex's fur, and though the microphone had been set down, the crowd could read her lips. "You're such a good boy, Rex. You saved me." Felt tears on his own cheeks and didn't bother wiping them away. Rex had saved Emma, yes, but Emma had saved Rex too, had shown him that his purpose extended beyond tracking suspects and detecting drugs, that a dog who'd been trained to be a weapon could also be an instrument of healing. The demonstration ended to thunderous applause. Captain returned to the stage to announce that the program was expanding, that thanks to state funding and private donations, they would be able to serve 50 children over the next year, that other police departments were being trained to implement similar programs, that Emma and Rex's story was rippling outward, creating waves of healing across the entire state. But for Emma, the politics and programs and press coverage didn't matter much. What mattered was that when she'd felt lost and voiceless, a big German shepherd with a fierce reputation had chosen to be gentle with her, had chosen to see her, had chosen to love her. As the crowd dispersed and the event wound down, Emma sat backstage with Rex's head in her lap, stroking his fur with the rhythmic, soothing motions that had become second nature. "You know what, Rex?" she said conversationally, as if continuing a long-running discussion. "When I grow up, I'm going to be a police officer with a K-9 partner, just like Officer, and I'm going to help scared kids find their brave voices, just like you helped me." Who'd been standing nearby smiled. "That sounds like a pretty good plan, Emma." Emma looked up at him seriously. "Will you teach me everything you know about being a good K-9 officer?" "Absolutely," promised. "We've got years ahead of us, plenty of time to learn." Sophia joined them, finally able to breathe after the stress of watching her daughter address hundreds of people. She knelt beside Emma and Rex, wrapping her arms around both of them. "I'm so proud of you, baby," she whispered. "Daddy would be so proud too." Emma's face brightened. "Do you think Daddy's dog Max and Rex would have been friends?" Sophia's breath caught. Emma rarely spoke about her father. The memories were too vague, the loss too abstract for her young mind. But now, healed and confident, Emma was reaching back toward that connection. "I think," Sophia said carefully, her voice thick with emotion, "that Max and Rex would have been the best of friends. And I think your daddy is watching you right now, seeing how brave his little girl has become, and he's smiling." Emma nodded solemnly, accepting this truth. Then she brightened. "Rex, did you hear that? You would have liked my daddy's dog. He was a police dog too, just like you." Rex's tail wagged, as if he understood every word, and maybe in his own way he did. The sun was setting over Riverside, casting long golden shadows across the fairground. Families were packing up, volunteers were breaking down booths, and the news crews were uploading their footage to be broadcast across the nation. But in a quiet corner backstage, a 3-year-old girl sat with a German shepherd's head in her lap, telling him stories about her father and his K-9 partner, about bravery and gentleness, and the magic that happens when two souls recognize each other across species. Officer Jake watched them together and marveled at how two simple words, "good boy," spoken with pure love and trust, had changed so many lives, had launched a program that would help countless children, had reminded an entire community that healing comes from unexpected places, and that the walls we build between us and them, between human and animal, between weapon and healer, are far more permeable than we imagine. "Good boy," Emma said again, her voice sleepy now, the excitement of the day catching up with her. "You're the best boy in the whole entire world." Rex sighed deeply, contentedly, and let his eyes drift closed. He was off duty now, his police vest removed, just a dog resting with his favorite person. But even in rest, even in this moment of peace, Rex maintained his vigil. One ear remained perked, listening for danger. His body positioned itself between Emma and the outside world. He was gentle, yes. He was healing, absolutely. But he was also and would always be Emma's protector, her guardian, her good boy. And in the end, that was the greatest miracle of all, that strength and gentleness, protection and healing, fierceness and love, could exist together in one heart. Whether that heart belonged to a trained police K-9 or a 3-year-old girl who'd learned to be brave again. "Good boy," Emma murmured, one last time before sleep claimed her completely. And somewhere in the gathering dusk, the echo of those two simple words continued to ripple outward, touching lives, changing hearts, and reminding everyone who heard the story that sometimes the most powerful magic in the world is simply recognizing the goodness in another soul and having the courage to name it aloud. The end.